Hey, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Good to have you here, as always. So this week, I want to do something a little bit different. I want to talk movies. Yeah, outlaw biker movies. Yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about this week. I'm going to give you my top 8 outlaw biker movies. Because there are many biker movies out there, but not all of them are about outlaw bikers, and majority of them don't portray outlaw bikers in a good light. Outlaw bikers are always the bad guys, and they've been portrayed as such in movies for the longest time. So I thought I would shed a little light on a few different movies that I've watched multiple times and that have inspired me to be a part of that outlaw biker world. Well, did inspire me when I was a kid growing up. And I'm sure many of you have probably seen these movies, but for some of the newer generation out there, you probably don't even know these movies exist. So let's get into it. Grab your coffee, grab your popcorn, grab whatever, grab your ape hangers. Let's get into it. Outlaw biker movies, top 8. Starting at number 8 is The Wild One. The absolute classic biker movie, The Wild One, featuring Marlon Brando. This one, for anyone who's, grew up with the whole biker culture or motorcycle clubs, they would have probably seen this movie or started with this movie. Now, the reason it's at number 8 for me is because I was never a Marlon Brando fan. I know, sacrilege, I'll end up with a horse head in my bed for saying such a thing, but as far as The Wild One goes, it was a little bit too far the outlaw biker world that I was trying to be a part of. It was the origins of the outlaw bikers, it was loosely based around the events at Hollister. The wild weekend that just made outlaw bikers a thing in America. Yes, it is around motorcycle clubs. In fact, Johnny, the main character, is a member of a motorcycle club, and it's all about the conflicts between clubs and men and the freedom and all that kind of stuff. Great movie. Definitely go check it out. It is a bit of a hard one to watch, especially if you're after a more fast-paced, more modern generation kind of movie, but well worth starting your journey. So next up at number 7 is Hell's Angels on Wheels. This is more of a 60s, 70s biker movie. The outlaw bikers were being recruited into a lot of different PR things, movies, TV appearances. They did security at Altamont. That is what led to a lot of them being used in movies, especially around this time. Hell's Angels on Wheels actually stars Jack Nicholson, and it actually has members of the Hell's Angels in it. And so that brings me on to number 6 on the list, which is another Hell's Angels movie from that time period, Hell's Angels 69. Again, this movie featured members of the Hell's Angels. Now, it was a very low-budget film. Fortunately, there wasn't a lot of acting in it, so the Hell's Angels didn't really have to speak much. But it was kind of a bad movie. When I first watched it, I just found it boring. The lack of dialogue or structure or good acting just really kind of bored me. But again, it is a classic cult movie that features actual members of the Hells Angels, including Sonny Barger. All right, so bring me to number 5 on the list is a modern movie, The Bike Riders. Now, this movie just came out this year, and I'm sure many of you have already seen it. And if you haven't, get out there and see it. It's a great film. This was inspired and based on Danny Lyons, who was a photographer who spent time with the Outlaws MC in their early years. He photographed them and he interviewed them. They based the movie off those interviews. Now, this was a pretty accurate description of what club life was like back then. They tried to do it as accurate as possible, and they really pulled it off. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and there was a couple of characters in there, like Sonny Funny, who's a very well-known Hells Angel from back in the day, and he was portrayed by Norman Reedus. And if you're a lover of bikes, you'll know Norman Reedus. So having him playing that role was absolutely awesome. It was great to see, and he crushed it. Go out and check out The Bike Riders if you want to see a movie that's based on the histories of outlaw biker clubs in America. All right, so getting to number 4 on the list, we have Beyond the Law, which in other countries is actually called Fixing the Shadow. So look out for this movie. It's not a well-known movie at all, but it features Charlie Sheen. Beyond the Law is about a federal officer who goes undercover to infiltrate an outlaw motorcycle club, and he does. He infiltrates it and takes them down. Now, it's quite a common story as far as outlaw biker movies go, and my next few movies on the list, kind of the same story, but this one is based on true events. Now, it's a gritty movie. A lot of it is an accurate depiction of outlaw biker life in the 90s. Sure, a lot of it is very Hollywood, a lot of it's a bit over-dramatized, but compared to many other movies that were portraying outlaw bikers in such a terrible way, like really bad, this one's kind of stood out. But well worth checking out, great movie. So coming up to number 3 on my list, this is one of my personal favorite movies. Stone Cold. Yeah, again, another cop infiltrates biker gang doing wrong kind of movie.
Cover cop doing a good job with a bad attitude.
This one's really out there. It was made in the 90s, features Brian Bosworth, who's an ex-football player turned actor for a short time. But surprisingly, he actually did the majority of his stunts in this movie, including the riding scenes. It was actually him riding the bike, which surprised me. The movie also features Lance Henriksen, who plays the president of this motorcycle club, and he's just a total badass in the movie. You know, the whole movie shows him in this total badass biker life. You know, they're all partying and dealing, and they're dealing with the mafia and all sorts. It's got everything. It's got girls, guns, bikes, fight scenes, you name it. And then, of course, it's all based around this outlaw motorbike club. And, of course, they're a little bit crazy. You know, they're doing some pretty wild stuff in the movie. I'm not going to ruin anything for you, but go check it out. Stone Cold. It's cheesy, but it's got great scenes, great music, great action, and it's a bit of a laugh fest in a lot of places. So, yeah, that's why it's number 3 on my list. Oh, that brings me to number 2 on the list, which has a similar name to number 3, the movie Stone. A police officer infiltrates a biker gang because the biker gang is getting taken out. They're basically getting picked off one by one. So they put Stone into the Gravediggers MC just so they can find out who's out to get the outlaw bikers. This movie was, you know, kind of hard to make, especially in Australia in the 70s. The Australian government didn't even want this movie made, but it went ahead and it went on to become an absolute cult classic. This is another movie that actually features members of outlaw motorcycle clubs at the time. The Gladiators were used in the movie and in the funeral procession, which has become a synonymous, famous scene with outlaw biker movies. They put a shout out to all the motorcycle clubs in Sydney at the time, like, hey, you know, we're filming this movie, we need as many riders together, and this is what they ended up with. A massive procession and actual outlaw motorcycle club members in that run, including members of the Hells Angels. Their patches are clearly visible in the movie. And it was an absolutely incredible movie. It's like, as far as the acting goes, it's a B-grade movie. It's not great. It's a little bit hard to watch, especially if you're not of that generation. But the riding scenes and a lot of the fight scenes and many of the other scenes in this movie were so realistic. It showed a pretty accurate representation of what Australian biker culture was like in the 70s and 80s. It was wild like this. And it's just a fantastic movie to watch, especially if you're feeling nostalgic. And if you're into the 70s muscle bikes or the Quacker 9s, Stone is the movie for that. So definitely go check it out. Number 2 on my list, great Australian film, Stone, absolute classic. All right, so we're getting through the list. We're getting up to the number 1 pick on my movie list. But I do have a bit of an honorable mention before we get into the number 1 movie on my outlaw biker list. Now, honorable mention, it's on here because it inspired many generations of guys to want to live that biker lifestyle. Not necessarily the outlaw biker lifestyle, because this movie isn't about outlaw bikers. but it is about the freedom of the biker lifestyle. And you guessed it, Easy Rider. Now, I couldn't do a list of biker movies without mentioning Easy Rider, because for so many of us, including myself, it was that first introduction to the free way of life. Two guys just riding across America to New Orleans to go party at Mardi Gras and just live this free way of life, you know, taking copious amounts of drugs and, you know, psychedelics and you name it, and just living free. When I first saw that movie, that was it for me. I was like, I want to do that. I am going to do that. I want to live that way. I'm going to live free. I want to live behind a set of ape hangers and just travel across the freeways, no destination in mind. So, of course, it had to be mentioned. Yeah. All right, so moving on to my number one pick. Now, this isn't actually a movie. It's not a fictional movie. It's not a dramatization. It is actually a documentary. And it's a documentary that was made by the Hells Angels. So, of course, I am talking about Hells Angels Forever. Now, I've watched Hells Angels Forever so many times. Documentary movie has inspired me all throughout my life whenever it came to wanting to be a part of the outlaw biker world and lifestyle. I always sought back to Hells Angels Forever and the images that I saw in that movie. And it just gave me more of an insight into what their life is about or was about than any of the other depictions. Of course, no movie depiction is ever gonna show the bad guys in a good light. And a lot of these movies, the bikers are bad guys. That's how they're portrayed. So that's why Hells Angels Forever is always going to be my number one pick, because they are sharing their life. They are sharing what it's like to be an outlaw biker. And as a bonus, you can actually watch it right here on YouTube for free. Hells Angels have actually uploaded a great version of it, and it's free for all. So there you go. There's my list of top 8 outlaw biker movies. Now, I'm sure there are many other movies out there. I probably haven't seen them, or I just don't want to see them again. But hey, feel free to leave your suggestions down below. If there's movies that I haven't mentioned here, let me know. I'll check them out. Next week, I am going to actually be doing a review of skinhead movies. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit different to this one. I want to give you my insights to them and talk about the accuracies and the inaccuracies and some of the ones that are actually based on true events. We're going to talk about them. So have a great week, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And hey, as always, give this video a big like, subscribe down below, and hit that little bell to get notified. And you'll be seeing new videos from me each week. As always, woohoo, what a bonus. But stay safe, everyone. Peace out, and love and light to you.